Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Monday, September 20th. Monday, September 20th. Oh, that's not really good, is it? Let's see. Is that any better? No. Yep. You want mine? All right. Is that better? Okay. Not really better either, is it? Good job, Alvin.
All right, good evening, everyone. Is that better? All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 20th meeting of the Conestoga Valley School Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome. I'd like to make note that all are in attendance. If everyone could please join me to the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Board, you have your agenda, or we have our agenda in front of us. I need a motion to approve our agenda tonight.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have our agenda. Dr. Z, any comments tonight? It's not coming through, right?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, nope.
Nope.
This one he just used.
Well, it's used.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Nobody. It's me. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. No? Yes? Nothing? That one okay?
That's better.
No? You heard no. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Wait, that's too hard to understand.
We have over.
That's,
Is that better?
no. A little bit.
How are we doing with this one? All right. Thank you, Mr. President. We have over 4,000 students in the district, and our job is to do the best we can to establish a safe and engaging environment in which they can all learn. To say that COVID has been challenging to that goal is an understatement. In March of 2020, we were abruptly shut down by the governor and forced to go to a virtual format. Students do not see the inside of a school building for the rest of the 1920 school year. However, in true CD spirit, the seniors did make the best of a difficult situation by enthusiastically participating in the drive-through graduation ceremony. During the 2021 school year, we were state mandated to implement masking, social distancing, and quarantine procedures, in addition to increased hand washing and building cleaning practices. Those mitigation efforts, which were not designed to stop COVID, but only helped to slow its spread, resulted in 400 of our students, faculty, and staff testing positive for the virus. Fast forward to this year, where we started out as masks optional, and while we don't directly quarantine, we do pass that information to the Department of Health, who in turn gives the quarantine recommendations to the families. In comparing last year to this year, we had 6 total positive cases at this time last year, and our most recent numbers as of today are 75 total positive cases within the first 4 weeks of the school year. The school board adopted a health and safety plan on July 19, 2021, and submitted it to the PA Department of Education. Then came the Secretary of Health's order on August 31st, 2021, that mandated the wearing of masks by all individuals beginning September 7th of this year. The order shifted local control of addressing the pandemic to a state mandate. With that mandate came possible consequences as determined by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for not enforcing the order, Namely, PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Education, is serving notice to each board member that failure to comply with the mask order is a violation of law and may be used by a plaintiff to establish personal liability in a negligence action. Each board member may face lawsuits from those who may be affected by noncompliance with the order, and each board member may bear potential liability with no indemnification or protection. Each board member may be charged a financial penalty for each student or staff member attending the school. Districts that do not comply may be referred to the U.S. Department of Ed Office for Civil Rights for investigation. In addition to facing potential lawsuits with consequences similar to those involving the board, educators can lose their certificate and commission through the educator misconduct process with PDE. When masks were mandatory to start the school last year, we provided online, homeschool, or cyber charter options for those who opted not to wear a mask. 80% of our students opted for in-school instruction with the mitigation strategies I described earlier, while 20% opted for a virtual or homeschool environment. Exemptions were also in place last year, although only a very few took advantage of that option. With the Secretary of Health's order, per PDE, school entities should follow their established process for determining student eligibility under those laws, including any medical documentation that they would normally require. There are exceptions to the order. However, per PDE, a parent's opposition to the order is not one of them. So what can we do collectively to get clarification, consideration, and modification of the order? As I previously noted, noncompliance can have personal ramifications for every teacher, administrator, and school board member in the district. I would ask that we focus our collective energy at the state level. 22 superintendents in Lancaster and Lebanon counties have requested a meeting with the acting Secretary of Health, have communicated with Senator Ahmet, Representative Cutler, the Chief of Staff for the Governor, and the Assistant Secretary of Education. Here's where we need your help. 22 superintendents contacting these individuals is one thing. But if you truly want answers to the why behind the order, or want your voice to be heard, no matter which side of the issue you are on, I encourage you to focus your actions to the individuals listed below. And they're listed on the board, and this will be posted so you'll know that you can contact the Acting Secretary of Health, the Secretary of Education, Senator Ryan Ahmet, Senator Scott Martin, Representative Keith Greiner, Representative Mike Sturla, and Governor Tom Wolf. That brings us to today. As of this morning, over 99% of our students complied with the mask face shield approved exemptions requirements. Pending action through the court system or change from the Acting Secretary of Health, CV will continue to, and I quote, adhere to any existing valid and binding orders from the Department of Health, Department of Ed, or CDC regarding facial coverings as approved in its health and safety plan. Principals will continue to work with families to facilitate their choice of in-person learning with a mask, face shield, or approved exemption, or the choice of online, cyber, homeschool, or other options. Like last week, I'll post my superintendent comments online so you can access the contact information of the individuals at the state level. That's all, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Dr. Z. Any correspondence from the Secretary tonight? All right. Any board comments tonight? All right. As again, we are here at the first time in our meeting for public comments. I would again like to echo Dr. Z's comments about how we conduct ourselves. As a board, we are here to listen, and our expectation remains that you will say your thoughts without getting loud, angry, and you keep your comments away from any type of personal attack towards anyone on this board, the administration, and anyone who may speak that may have a different opinion than yours. I would also like to remind everyone that you have one chance to speak, and that time is about 3 to 5 minutes. Please value that, because that will allow others to share and speak as well. And I would also like to mention that it was brought to my attention last week that there was rude and coarse language made during the public comments last week. This is not how we should conduct ourselves. If we hear language like that again, I'm going to ask those people to be quiet, to be respectful, and if that can't be the case, then I will ask you to exit the auditorium. So with that, I do open it up for public comments. We're here to listen. Oh, yes, and again, name, address, and, well, your name and address. So, thank you.
No, we lost it, huh?
My name is Todd Heidelbaugh. I live at 475 Marlene Way in Leola. I have 2 children that go to Brownstown. Today, what took place at the school is an act of segregation, no matter which way you want to look at it. Our children were removed from their classrooms, put in a separate room, and kept away from the other students. They were not allowed to have lunch with their other students, even though masks are not required during lunch. Same with recess. I want to bring up a definition that's in the mandate that says force. The school cannot force. If you look up the definition in a dictionary on the word force, force does not mean physical. Basically, what I'm getting at with that is, in one of the definitions, forcing someone to retire. Basically, what they're saying is, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. That's an act of force. That violates the mandate. That's my view on it. And I am totally for taking this to the next step. You guys said that you guys can be sued personally. Violating the mandate on the other side of the table also opens you up to being sued personally. The state is not going to back you. I called the Department of Health today, and I told them what happened. And I went over the word force with them. And I spoke to Dr. Z, and she told me what I was to do and agreed with me. Gave me a form to fill out that went directly to the governor's office. So I really think the board needs to step back and look at the word force, because the state will throw you under the bus, because they're going to say, we did not tell you to do that. We told you not to forcefully. One other thing, the letter that my children received today because they showed up without a mask. The very last thing that states, it says, be advised that continual failure to comply with the district direction, use of mask, face shield, or approved exemption may result in progressive discipline. Tell me that that's not an act of force. You're saying if they don't do it, this is what's going to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, we need another mic.
See if Dylan can get the mic.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Kristen Bishop.
Can we, hold on a sec, can we get another mic for the public comments?
Yeah. You want to try this one?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? Yes?
Dylan, how's this one?
Good. I think we're good.
Okay.
My name is Kristen Bishop. I live at 1912 Creek Hill Road, and my son just started kindergarten at Fritz. I am going to take your suggestion and contact the people in Harrisburg directly. As a nurse, what I have to say is, of course, focused around the healthcare piece of it. I still have significant concerns regarding the safety of long-term mask wearing. Masks were originally mandated under an emergency use authorization, which places them in the category of experimental. They have not been approved or licensed for long-term use because the long-term safety and effectiveness has not been proven. Under federal law, experimental therapy requires consent and the right to refuse. We have not been provided with any risk versus benefit of mask wearing or the risk versus benefit of any proposed alternative. The mask mandate violates federal law, and I also question if it violates the Pennsylvania Drug, Device, and Cosmetic Act, which the Department of Health has authority for. Under that act, a device is defined as instruments, apparatus, and contrivances for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. A device is considered misbranded and illegal to sell when the label does not include instructions for use or safety warnings regarding children. This mask mandate specifically How far? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? No.
What's going on?
This mask mandate, no.
No.
Test.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. This mask mandate violates federal law, and I also question if it violates the Pennsylvania Drug, Device, and Cosmetic Act, which the Department of Health has authority for. Under that act, a device is defined as instruments, apparatus, and contrivances for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. A device is considered misbranded and illegal to sell when the label does not include instructions for use or safety warnings regarding the risk of use in children. This mask mandate specifically instructs children to wear face coverings and improvised household items as masks to prevent transmission, with no instructions for use or safety warnings. Data shows that children are at low risk for transmitting the virus. Last week, Francis Collins, the director of the National Institute of Health, stated that school mask mandates are not based on data, but rather they are an effort to prevent schools from closing. So the big question is, why are we no longer using the data? The most recent safety plan this school district developed for mask wearing and school closures is based on data. Why would the school district switch to a plan not based on data when you've already developed a plan that is supported by data? This proposed long-term mask wearing is based on speculation, and there is no room for speculation in our modern healthcare system. Interventions need to be based on evidence. Our children are still developing. There are no studies that indicate long-term mask wearing in children is safe, but we do have historical evidence that shows children suffer developmentally when they are denied the normal social and emotional cues and communication which come from face-to-face interactions. That evidence is out there. Thank you. In the past 18 months, we have heard from science experts and politicians, but the one voice we have not heard from is the children. Who is going to ask our children what outcomes they are experiencing from mask wearing and other mandates? Our government has no plans to address or mitigate anything other than COVID. And that failure to act is dangerous for our children. There are several tenets of modern healthcare I'd like to share. First is the acknowledgement that the safest decisions are made at the point of care closest to the patient. In the community, the people closest to the child are the parents. Second, it's acknowledged that an intervention can cause more harm than good, if not chosen correctly. We are currently at a point where our government is restricting drugs and therapies, and that will cause more harm than good. We are currently at a point where we are seeing good healthcare professionals leave the profession rather than face interventions that cause more harm than good. Efficient healthcare professionals who know how to treat a virus without government mandates. And this virus is no longer novel. We have been living with it for almost 2 years now. Last week, my son's seasonal allergies and asthma started to cause him discomfort, and I realized I did not have any albuterol in the house. So I called, and the physician's office told me they could not see him. And if he needed a breathing treatment, I should take him to the emergency room. The emergency room is where his risk for exposure to COVID increases exponentially. During my entire career as a nurse, we have attempted to reverse the systemic issues that enable primary and preventative care to crowd our emergency rooms, but COVID interventions are now reversing all the gains we have made. Instead of a 15-minute office visit or a telehealth visit or a phone call from the physician or a 5-minute call to the pharmacy with a prescription, I was told to send my son to the emergency room for primary care. Our focus should be on keeping people in the community and out of the emergency room. That's why our emergency rooms and hospitals are overwhelmed. I shared this to illustrate that my son's risk for an adverse outcome related to his asthma and his lack of primary care is now greater than any risk from a virus with a 99% survival rate. Individuals should be provided with risk versus benefit and consent prior to both accepted and experimental therapy. That is not happening here. The director at the NIH has gone on record acknowledging there is no safety data to support long-term mask wearing or to refute our concerns regarding long-term mask wearing. So why would we subject our children to a mandate directed only at them when there is no data to support it, and we as parents have evidence it is causing problems? Without data to support the intervention, there is no outcome to measure. Historically, government has been a very poor manager of healthcare, and our government does have a very unsavory history of unsafe, biased, and unethical actions and experimentation on its citizens. The Pennsylvania Constitution places government control at the local level, which is right here in this room. And the decision to wear masks needs to remain at the local level with the parents. Thank you.
See if you can get to that one. Can you pull it down towards you a little bit?
Julie Fisher? Nope. Is it on? It says it's on.
You may have to go back to that one.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Need the microphone for the budget, huh?
I guess. Wasn't front left.
Julie Fisher. I live at 145 Spring Meadow Lane in Ephrata. Tonight I wanted to respectfully address some concerns that I had both with the September 7th letter and the 14th and the September 14th letters written to the school district I also want to address your concern about legal action by the Board of Education. I'll begin with the letters. Number one, the use of a face shield as an alternative to the face mask. While I will agree it is a better alternative for my son who deals with high anxiety in a face mask, our fear is that in the coming months it will be deemed unacceptable by the DOH. Based on our experience from last year, we know that the DOH guidelines are ever changing, and we don't want to give into a shield only to go back to where we started with a face mask next month. If shields are not accepted, then I'm going to be back here standing before you asking for an exemption. The 504 plan, it is my understanding that the 504 plan was designed to protect handicapped students under the American with Disabilities Act. My child is not handicapped, praise the Lord, nor is he disabled. Therefore, I cannot, in good conscience, sign a form giving my consent for my son to be labeled as such. I'm also questioning why, to start a 504 process, my written consent is required. But my written consent for an exception, based on what I know to be true of my son, is denied. If I were to proceed with the 504 process and was not approved, I would be standing here again asking for an exemption. Number three, there is a current case, as you mentioned, in the Commonwealth Court regarding the Secretary of Health's order. You stated the board will comply with the order until it is overturned by the courts. In an article I read this week by the Associated Press, it stated that some speculate that the courts will most likely side with the state when ruling. To this I say, then what? When does masking our children end? If the courts side with the state, then I'll be right back here again, standing before you, asking for an exemption. Now I want to address the school board's concern with the Department of Education. An article by the Associated Press on September 17th quoted the Education Department's letter that was sent to all of you in 500 PA school districts. As you're aware, the letter said, any school entity simply permitting a parent sign off without evidence that the student has a medical or mental health condition is not in compliance with the order. However, the article goes on to say that there are some school district officials who are countering that. They say that if the Wolf administration had wanted to require a doctor's endorsement, they should have done so in the masking order itself. In a similar article on September 10th, the Associated Press conducted spot checks on about 50 school districts and revealed that at least 12 of those school districts, just the 50 that they picked, 12 of those school districts, from huge suburban school systems outside Philadelphia to rural districts in the West, are using exemption forms that don't require medical professionals' signatures. In fact, my own polling from today for my friends in other school districts showed that Elanco, Hempfield, Central Bucks, and 3 other private schools in our local area are all offering an exemption without medical documentation. So CV Board, you would not be the first mover here. Furthermore, the state education department has said it does not track compliance with masking orders. The only school board that I have found in my research so far to be reprimanded by the department was the Tamaqua Area School District in Schuylkill County. They received a letter dated on September 8th warning them of various consequences for not requiring masks at all. In fact, this school district has chosen to flat out ignore the order and have kept masking optional, which is not what the other school districts are doing. As far as I can tell from my research, those schools who adhere to the order as it was originally written, but allow for an exemption without a doctor's signature, have been virtually ignored other than a verbal reprimand. In conclusion, we ask for the school board to acknowledge that school districts should be locally controlled and that parents are the best judge of their children's medical and mental well-being. Please follow the example of other schools in Pennsylvania and offer an exemption with a parent's signature alone, so that I no longer have to stand before you and ask for one. And with that, I would like to say, in the research that I was doing, the Associated Press did say in those schools that they found who were allowing an exemption with a doctor's note, still the majority, 90% of the schools were still following the mask mandate. It was just the 10% in that school system of concerned parents like us who have children that we know don't do well in masks who asked for the exemption. So I think if you added that exemption, I don't believe there's going to be a free-for-all of parents and kids filling out exemptions and you had 90% of your students unmasked. I still think it's just going to be the 10% that are presented here today. Thank you.
Aaron Fisher, 145 Spring Meadow Lane, Ephrata. You heard from my better 7/10. Now you get to hear from me. So I kind of want to echo what she talked about, but I come again and speak to you because I am concerned most for your powers, which is our powers and our civil rights. I want you to retain your local authority as you are our leaders, and I want you to stand up for our kids that are victims of this abuse of law from Harrisburg. I do not want to see the bullying from Harrisburg strip you of your powers. If they strip your powers, they're ultimately stripping me of my powers. And I want to remind you that you work for us. It's our vote puts you in your chairs. Your job is to protect the community and to be the voice of the community. We simply want a good, positive, physically and mentally healthy education for our kids. The only way to successfully achieve that is to keep parent choice in play at all costs. A stable and healthy mother and father know it is always best for their child. School boards, hold applause. Let's get through this. School board, your powers are found in the PA school code, and there is nothing in that school code that gives the Department of Health any authority over you unless there is an extreme disease outbreak. And extreme disease outbreak in our population, and we do not have an extreme disease outbreak here in the school district or in any of the surrounding school districts. So we currently do not need the Department of Health to mitigate for us. You started with a statistic, over 4,000 students, 75 COVID cases. That's less than 2%. That is not an extreme outbreak. And even if there was an extreme disease outbreak, you, the school board, have looked at the control measures to detain it here. Regardless of Governor Wolf's outreach with the authority, you still have the control in the school district. As my wife had alluded, and as I asked you last week, to be a first mover. You are not the first mover. And so many of you, before you have moved, this mic is driving me nuts. So you're not the first mover. Many have moved before us, and it's your time to join them. We're asking you to join them. So my wife spoke to you and brought up some questions that I believe that many parents would like some clarity and answers on. I would like some dialogue tonight. I believe communication will bring clarity and maybe some unity in this room. I was disappointed to see that our solicitor is not here tonight, and I would like to ask him a question. But let me give you some of the questions that I would like to ask. First question is this: do you believe the frequently asked questions section created by the Secretary of Health to be law? I'll repeat that again for those of you that are writing. Do you believe the frequently asked question, the FAQs section created by the Secretary of Health to be law? Second question would be, looking at risk management, does following the order as you are right now, as you stated tonight, open the schools board or future school boards, as I know some of you are stepping down in November, does it open future school board members to student mental health issues or physical health issues, like the second speaker talked about tonight, or even student suicide risks? What if you found in a letter saying, based on the things that are going on in school because of all these different mask mandates, they put in a letter and they blame you, or blame the school board, or blame Conestoga Valley for their suicide? Does the school board's sovereign immunity protect you from that? So, in your professional opinion, and that's what I love to ask the solicitor, which is worse? Which is worse? Following the facts, or ask yourself this question: do you believe the frequently asked questions is the law? Well, if it's not, then we can eliminate a lot of things. Now, I want to talk about the third question, is looking at the 504. My wife spoke to it. She gave the definition of it. I won't go back and repeat that. But here's what I see. So today, I go to the Brownstown Elementary School, and I go to the secretary's window, and she politely asked me, "Oh, are you here to pick up a 504 packet?" I was not there to pick up a 504 packet. There were 4 504 packets stapled and neatly in a row, obviously looking like it's for pickup. And with the dialogue that we have with our principal, with the letters that came out on the 7th and the 14th, it attached in there these 504s. So it seems to me that you're trying to say, without really saying, hey, we want to work with you parents, maybe even agree with you parents, so use this 504 option. We will make it super easy to enter, and when the court strips the outreach of the DOH and the governor and all goes away, we'll make it easy to remove the 504 from your child. So essentially, we make the parents happy, and our backsides in the school board stay covered. So is this the legal game you want us to play? Is that what you are suggesting to us? It doesn't make any sense to me, but it looks like that's what's constantly being pushed from what I see on the desk of the secretary, from every email that we receive, pushing that. Is it just a game of semantics that we're supposed to play along so that it looks like we're good and it also covers you guys on the backside? So here's where I'll end. So I'm going to ask School Board President Todd Scherzer, Phil B., I can't pronounce your last name, I've tried multiple times. I got you to say something. There we go. That's a win tonight. And Diane Martin, I'm going to appeal to you three. I'm going to look you in the eye, because you're the ones I find that pay the most attention to us. Thank you for your response, your emails, because the names I didn't mention, I quite frankly haven't heard anything. So, would you please, one of you three, make a motion. Now, in my notes, to say allow Robert Frankhauser, that's who I wanted to direct, because he's your solicitor, he's going to speak on your legal behalf, to answer some questions that I just posed to you. And I would ask the entire board that you grant this request as you represent the community, and our tax dollars are paying for Mr. Frankhauser's counsel, and I want to hear from him. And so would you make that motion for me? Todd Scherzer, will you make that motion for me? Phil, will you make that motion for me? Diane, will you make that motion for me?
That's Diane.
I'm sorry. Now I meet you in person. It's hard to see with the mask. I go on the computer to try to look you guys up, and it's hard to see. Diane, would you make that motion?
What motion are you asking for again?
I gave those 3 questions. Would you like me to repeat them?
I have, do you think the FAQ is law?
Yep. Do you think that the frequently asked questions section created by the secretary is the law, to be the law?
And then the 5...
In your opinion?
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want me to...
No, I thought we have to motion to be able to have a conversation. But if you just want to answer, I would like to see an answer.
During public comments, it's strictly that we are to
But a motion
listen.
could be made to answer questions, anytime.
At this point in time, we're going to sit and listen to the things that you have for us to ask, that you have to talk to us about.
Okay.
If that means that we, at some point in time, will ask Mr. Frankhauser to respond to these questions, we can do that. But at this point in time, we're here to listen.
Okay. So, from a raise of hands from the crowd, who would like them to make a motion to answer those questions? All opposed? Come on, Todd. We put you in that position. I know you're on your way out, but we put you in that position. Because that's a breakdown. That's why the solicitor needed to be here tonight. So, Dr. Z, can we have a special meeting where the solicitor comes, and it can be a Q&A for this community in this room? Would you consider that? Because we would like to hear the counsel that you're getting, because you are the voice. You're the voice of the school board. Last time we talked, I apologize for this room, because they kept saying Dr. Z's hands are tied. Dr. Z's hands are not tied. Your hands are not tied. You work at the pleasure of the school board, and the school board is our voice. So I'm very saddened, Todd, by your answer. Would you please consider Dr. Z to have a special meeting with the solicitor with a Q&A? I believe that is reasonable. So, you can't answer about the 504s. Is that what you want, Dr. Z? Where it seems like is that the legal game we're playing? Is that the game of semantics we're playing? Can we get an answer to that in a letter or some type of dialogue? I hope to see another meeting outside of the school board where we as a community can come together and get the answers that we want. Your silence is very telling to us tonight.
Jim Mabel, 21 Mayfield Drive. Hello again. I'm going to get through this time without crying. Okay. Today, I sent my son Jace, a 6-year-old kindergartner, to school in a face shield. Against his will, and most notably, against the will of my husband and I, as his parents. Throughout the past 2 weeks, I've been reminded multiple times by Dr. Z and Dr. Pavlovec at Leon Elementary that my son would be denied an education today, being pulled from the classroom and sat in the administrative offices if we did not comply. It is my duty as a parent to do research and question everything for the sake of my children, not to blindly trust. At the end of the day, I am the one that has to deal with the fallout. You've heard many parents voice issues and concerns regarding the mask mandate. Physical, mental, emotional. There's quite a broad range that poses a lot of questioning and very little research to back up any sort of dismissal or lack of consideration of these valid concerns. So, based on what I know thus far and what we've witnessed in our own household, we as parents say no to this for our children. This mandate is still being determined whether or not it's valid in the courts. That's why so many superintendents and so many other schools are fighting this. Do you honestly believe that it is in the best interest of all parents in our district to have the government making our personal medical decisions for our children? You are elected to represent the parents of this district. You know this is overreach. You know this is unlawful. Look at the policies in place for school administration medications, vaccine exemptions, the list goes on. And yet, we haven't really heard anyone on this board voice a willingness to even discuss what we've been commenting on for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to share a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. I will again ask that you recognize the appalling overreach taking place in our state and find a way to correct the course. Set a policy for our district that recognizes the authority given to us as parents. Please stand with us. Do you think this will stop with masks? What happens when the vaccine is approved for young children and some entity tries to mandate it for our kids? Are we supposed to just fall in line and comply so that you as a board can avoid the friction that comes with fighting for our freedoms? They will put continued mandates on you guys. Once they've seen how this is cooperated with, it will continue. That's my belief. I'll end with one more Martin Luther King quote. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it's right. This mask policy, barring our children from equal education, is wrong. You all have the authority as the school board to do what is right. Please motion to vote on this mandate and redirect the authority to where it belongs, back to the parents with parent exemptions. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Mark Gansel, 36 West Main Street, Leola, 4 kids, 3 in school, 2 different buildings, 4-year-old gym, same as last time. That hasn't changed. I actually had a whole speech prepared that even included some of my personal thoughts on pistachio pudding, but Dr. Z, you shared that very clear and concise thing at the beginning, so thank you for that, because that kind of not only completely dislodged my little speech, but also clearly communicated a lot of the things that I had been piecing together since the last board meeting. And so I do want to applaud that clear communication from you guys. I think that was very well done, and I appreciate that. I will say I wish that would have been communicated at the first meeting, or at least in response to that first meeting the next day, which is probably why that first letter that was issued felt like such a kick in the face to us, because it felt like we hadn't been heard. And then I come here and I hear that and I go, oh, they were listening, so thank you for that. And I think of any of the things that, it's tough, like the tendency, I think, for a lot of us as parents, and I hope you hear the heart of this, is for a lot of us, this is starting to feel a little hopeless, right? And it's not, I think what the point a lot of us are trying to say, this is not about, I don't like masks, I don't like face shields, and I disagree politically. It's not about that. This is really just about a tyrannical order. Like she just shared, I wouldn't believe it's going to end here. So the problem that we're left with is you guys represent us, and even that's a little bit of a mixed bag because there's going to be a lot of seats open before the end of the year. So that leaves us wondering, we know 2 have been communicating, but the others are silent. And I understand that you've been beaten up. Last year had to be tough. I get that. I can respond with empathy and compassion for you guys. Last year was tough. It was tough on all of us, but you guys had to enforce this mandate that covered not only public life, but school life, right? Which also kind of speaks to the point of what you were saying, Dr. Z. There will be more cases now, because when you look at the community at large, we're still not wearing masks when we're outside. So that will affect the numbers in school, because the protections outside are not being enforced. And even with that, we don't have outbreaks. So we're left as parents with this little bit of a mixed bag about where are we supposed to put our confidence. And personally, that's my heart cry tonight, is where am I supposed to put my confidence? I know what I want to see, and what I want to see is my freedoms not revoked by the state. What I want to see and see you guys reminded of is your power and your authority as our elected officials that are supposed to be taking care of our kids. And I believe, there are some of you out there that have been involved in the school board for a long time. That speaks to me of a passion to get involved in the education of our children, of a passion to see the lives of children bettered every day. So my heart cry to you as a dad is this the best we can do? All the loopholes that we've pulled to get this thing pushed, right? And he's got all these little departments in his pocket, and I understand how all that stuff works. I think he probably should have been spanked more as a kid, but that's just me. But all the loopholes and everything, if he was able to push and pull to get this thing worked through, even after having his powers revoked, I know some of you have looked for the loopholes, and I appreciate that. There has to be something else. If other school districts are taking up the mantle, even in just the smallest way, kind of like, I think Leopold Strasburg is even one that's kind of saying, like, we're just not really giving it much attention, and we'll see what happens. There has to be something else than coming down with this hammer on all of us that just won't have the choice. And I will say again, I will not fight this battle through my children. I will not force anxiety on a middle schooler that is already dealing with the anxieties of being a middle schooler with bills and all that stuff. I'm not going to force that on her. I'm also not going to force this on my two elementary school boys. I will not fight through them. And I think compliance is the ammo that this mandate is going to use to reinforce every other mandate he wants to push moving forward. Compliance is actually the enemy to this. So as a dad who refuses to fight this battle through his children, my compliance looks like I'm in agreement, but I'm not in agreement with this. How could I be in agreement with this? And again, it's not about mass, it's about authority. The government is not going to help me run my kids. It's not going to help me take care of my kids. These rights are inherent to me as a father. When you guys are given power, those are inherent to you as a school board. There has to be a better way. So my appeal to you is this. I had 2 points, one of which has already kind of been addressed, which is clear communication. Let's keep that coming. Clear communication. For those of you on the school board that have not spoke up, in addition to the little notes or something that's there, or if somebody reaches out for personal comment, please be willing to just share a personal comment. It doesn't matter. I think what it comes down to is we might disagree about masks, shields, and even policy within school, but we can all agree that freedom is important. Freedom is something worth standing up and fighting for, not only with all the folks that you think, but even what Martin Luther King said when he said, we have a moral obligation to stand up against unjust laws. And I don't personally think this is a law, it's an order, but either way, there has to be some form of fight in all of us to say, this is not okay. How do we push back? So, like I said, clear communication, number one, and the other one is, I'm just asking for more brainstorming on your end. For those of you that are stepping down and you're done, again, I understand. This has been rough, and I understand if you're stepping down because you're just beat up, I get it. Can you go out strong for us? Can you go out with your heads held high knowing that you did everything you possibly could to try to allow parents and kids that are really going to struggle with this mask mandate to at least choose? And the funny thing is, my kids may still choose to wear a mask. particularly middle school, that is a social issue. If all their friends are wearing masks, they are going to wear a mask because they don't want to be bullied and they don't want to be left out. And as much as we try to stop that from happening, it is going to happen. Kids make fun of each other for what their masks look like. So we know that they're going to be like, how come you're not wearing a mask? Are you a disabled kid? You know what I mean? I can already know that stuff's happening. So there's really not a whole lot of protection with that. So the compliance might still be there. There has to be an option for these kids that want to take a stand on their own and they don't want to wear the mask and the parent is in agreement with that. There has to be some form of an easier option, a loophole that we can sneak this through where Wolf doesn't get it drawn attention to CV and come down with the hammer on you guys. There's got to be a loophole. There has to be something else. Like you guys mentioned the superintendent group, and that's been explored, and we're waiting for answers. Fantastic. There are school districts, like they mentioned earlier, all over the place that are at least fighting somehow. And a lot of the school districts that we talk to are also responding and say, boy, CV's coming down pretty hard. Yeah, it is. So again, I feel like I'm getting long-winded and I'm getting a little off course. And again, it's, it was all planned out and you guys side-railed me. So without trailing into pistachio pudding, I do want to say, I guess just reinforce again, how do we take our community here, which is you guys, the 5 or so that are done, that want to be done, I get that. How do we fill you with passion again, at least until November or December to where you're done? And how do we reach out to these other school districts and find out if we can stand with unity together with all the school districts? And I'm not even talking to superintendents and stuff. You guys are employees of the school, and I get that. The school board members, the community that is volunteering. Can we reach out to all the other school board members that are connected to these other schools and say, if there's enough of us banded together, there's strength in numbers, is he going to come down and sue each of you individually? Or is the community going to? How do they even prove that their child received COVID when the community at large is not wearing masks? I think a lot of this stuff, while the word may is in there, and the word may is the scary word. This might happen, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. I get that. So we're allowing this 3-letter word that Wolf threw out there, M-A-Y, to control and really push a lot of fear. And again, there just has to be a better way. So that's my heart cry for you guys. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. There just has to be, with a whole community that is supporting you, and all of you people who have been attached, a lot of you have been attached to the school board for as long as you have, and all the creative thinking and all the things and the characters that we push in this school district, characters of leadership and creativity, critical thinking, and all that stuff. I listened to Dennis Quirk, the middle school principal, talk about that little pillar of all the things, critical thinking, problem solving, all that stuff's there. Are we still doing that, or have we consigned and said, this is just the breath of freedom for our district, so it is what it is? That's my appeal. So thanks, guys.
Good evening, Christina Bender, 2432 Douglas Drive. Dr. Z and school board, thank you for your help with trying to keep our kids healthy and safe, but that's not your job. As parents of 3 children in the district and in 3 different buildings, I am disheartened by your health and safety plan, what it's doing to my children who want to go to school mask-free. My 6th grader was singled out in the classroom last week for discrimination. She was the only kid in class without a mask, and she was pointed out, singled out, read the letter from Dr. Z to the whole entire classroom, and her anxiety went through the roof. So I filed a complaint with the Human Relations Commission, and you will also receive a copy in the mail this week from that. My 8th grader stayed home from school because he wanted to be eliminated from peer pressure and didn't want to be confronted by teachers and staff. So I will file another complaint off of discrimination because he doesn't want to go to school anymore, and that's not fair to him. Today, Aubrey went to school, and we walked into Smoketown Elementary, and Sally was so nice enough to address us and say, I'm sorry, Aubrey, you can't be here at school anymore, handed us the paper, and Aubrey said, well, I don't want to leave. So Aubrey stood for her freedom and walked into the office and sat in the office all day long for her freedom to breathe. Look, these kids don't want to wear masks. If the parents are forcing them, that's one thing, but they don't want to wear a mask. There's a few that are going to go and stand for their freedoms, but they're not wanting to wear a mask. And we will continue to file complaint after complaint after complaint until our voices are heard. Thank you.
My name is Phil Eby, living at 135 Snapdragon Drive in Leola. And my wife is Laura. She is an RN, so has a good knowledge of the medical field and things. But tonight I'm not going to talk about how bad masks are for kids. I talked about that last time. I don't want to talk about the unlawful mask order. It's based on the authority of the Secretary of Health from the 1955 order, which was to mitigate outbreaks, not give blanket coverage for the Secretary of Health to do whatever she wants to mandate. I checked, and we talked about the numbers earlier. There's, I believe, 18 current cases within the school district, and that's 0.4% of the population of students and staff, so that's hardly an outbreak. And furthermore, there's no way to prove that someone contracted COVID at school. There's really no way to prove where they contracted it at all. And even wearing masks is certainly no guarantee of not getting COVID. I know of no one that just stays home and doesn't interact with anyone else, which is probably the only way to not contract it. On Saturday evening, there was 110,000 fans at the Penn State game, and I saw very few masks there. Well, COVID is going to be around for a long time, and we're going to have to choose to either live in fear, or we can get on with living a fulfilled life. And I too would like to hear the board discuss the order. You know, what made you conclude that it's the law of the land? How are other schools getting around the order? I would like to see a vote on, at minimum, an extension of the grace period until things get figured out in Harrisburg. I had three children today who were sent home because of this policy. They did nothing wrong other than wanting to breathe free air. We teach them to treat others with respect and honor, and to listen, to obey authority, to be a light in the darkness for Christ, and to stand up for what's right. And that's what we're doing here. I got an email on Friday about some TikTok challenge that kids are tearing fixtures out of schoolroom bathrooms, and our kids are getting kicked out of school for wanting to breathe air freely. Something's wrong. I'm going to leave you with a note that I'm going to read from one of my child's teachers. And this exemplifies what we as parents, and I know I'm speaking for everyone here, what we want our kids to be. Today, when I dropped the kids off at phys ed, the life skills aide who works with the life skills kids in gym stopped me to ask if Kira was my student. When I said yes, she was gushing about how helpful and thoughtful Kira is, especially with the life skills kids. I wasn't surprised at all. She is such a great example of kindness and all things good. Thank you for her. More than likely, our 3 children will not be in school tomorrow.
School proud of that, but I'm also trying to get an exemption for an actual medical, I don't want to say disability, but an actual issue that he has. He cannot breathe through his nose, and it's stated very clearly on the medical forms. I've asked my doctors straight out, is somebody saying to you that we can't even issue an exemption? You're the third doctor I've seen. How is this even happening? I also wanted to point out that I've asked most of my children, how do your friends wear their masks? And all of them said to me, most of them wear them under their nose, although the teachers are trying to get more strict with that. So I'd like to say that we're masking our children, we're not wearing them properly. I send them mask-free every day, and I make them go to the office so that you can kindly provide a mask from the fund that I don't know who pays for that, but I'm not paying for masks any longer. You can pay for them. If you are going to continue providing them and are going to continue having our children wear masks, I would ask that they would be surgical masks, that they could actually be helpful. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Canton LaSala, 140 East Main Street in Brownstown. Dr. Z earlier stated that 99% of children showed up at school today either wearing a mask or a face shield, and that you are using this data to back up your decision to enforce the mandate. I would respectfully disagree with your assessment of this statistic and would propose instead that this shows that your community is full of respectful individuals who are not willing to use our children as a weapon against injustice. We will take this fight to the next level, to the state level, and many of us have already done so, and many of us will continue to do so. But claiming that you are simply following the mandate, I feel like that's an excuse. There is verbiage in the mandate putting the responsibility to enforce this unlawful order on the shoulders of the schools. However, the mandate also includes verbiage stating that a school entity should not enforce face covering requirements when there is an exception under Section 3, or if it is unsafe to do so. It certainly is unsafe to do so for many reasons, many of which you've heard tonight, you've heard last week. It goes on to say that a school entity should not restrain, use force, or physically remove teachers, children, students, staff, or visitors who refuse to comply with this order when it would not otherwise be legal to do so. Starting today, CV School District began turning children away from their education. And while I will be willing to agree that no one is being forcibly removed yet, the schools are absolutely participating in discrimination and segregation. And this brings me to my final point of the order, where it states that a school entity should not violate other laws, including state and federal anti-discrimination laws. As it is apparent that you have decided to follow this order to the letter, then I would encourage you to please take another look at the order and realize that you are over the line with what's required and also what's allowed. We implore you, please do not let fear of this government overreach shadow your ability to make this decision on behalf of this community who are crying out for freedom. Thank you.
You okay? All right. Samantha Hershey, and I have my son Jacob Church here. We live at 152 South Eastland Drive, and he wanted to say something to you all.
I cannot wear a mask. It gives me very bad headaches, and I cannot concentrate on my schoolwork. I also have very bad anxiety from it. Please allow my parents to make a choice for me. Thank you.
I just want to say, I don't have anything written up tonight because I did that last week and I sat for hours trying to come up with good points to present to you all because I feel as though you guys are the backbone of the school. I feel as though I should be able to come to you and talk to you about our wants and our needs. But last week when I presented to you and I was in tears because I'm so upset and so frustrated for my children, I felt as though half of you didn't even want to hear what I said. I felt like you all would rather be at home watching Jeopardy. I mean, I felt like I didn't have a spot here, and I've always looked up to CV. I'm a garden spot girl, but coming into this, I thought, you know what, CV is a great place. I want to have my kids here. I want to be here. I want to invest time in this school district. But what I've seen tonight, parents coming to you all and asking questions, and I understand you can't answer everything right now, but that just really disappointed me, and I'm very disappointed in our school district. I'm very sorry that this is so much weight on you all, but you know, if other schools around us are able to stand up for their students and prove a point that, you know, we're here for you, we're listening to you, then I don't understand why we here in CV can't do it. And I feel like if you all are so close to retiring and you don't have that backbone, please step down and resign so somebody can step in and take charge. I will do it if I have to. I mean, we need leadership. There's no leadership anymore. We teach our kids to respect you as leaders, but I can't even say, kids, please go to school and respect them because all you're doing is worried about a cloth covering their face. I mean, I've had numerous parents today tell me that they got a call because their student's mask wasn't in compliance. Are you that close to my child's face during the day that you can see their mask? Or are you making them take it off? Are we doing checks? I feel as though this whole thing is completely a waste of time. I am not taking away from COVID being a very, very, very hard time on our country right now. I get it. I have my own family members that have dealt with it, but this is just, it's getting ridiculous. And us as parents, we need to be able to tell you what we want.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Ross. I live at 69 Linda Avenue, Lancaster. My daughter Courtney is here with me today. She's a third grader at one of the elementary schools, and I have a seventh grader at the middle school. I won't be as long-winded today. We refused to comply, although she did wear her mask today because she was embarrassed. She didn't want to get singled out. She was afraid of all the kids in the class looking at her, and she's afraid of, you know, being reprimanded by the staff and the teachers. I don't see why my child should be afraid at school. So we're still going to fight this. We're going to refuse. I'm filing complaints at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commissions. We'll be receiving those this week for both kids, all complaints. We want parental consent. We want exemption through parental signature. That's what we want. We want it today. If you're afraid to stand up for the legal battle, please resign. We will easily fill your spot with someone who will fight with us. I request that the school board vote for parental consent today. This is my second request for a parental survey I want a survey that you guys conduct. We want a survey that you conduct from the parents to hear about to see how many parents in the district want to be wearing a face shield or a mask or not for their kids. That's my second request. So basically I'm saying you do not have my consent to put anything on my kid's face. You all, the staff, the school, we want to remain in CB. We really do. We've had a great experience up until now, and that's why we're standing here before you. So we would like to remain here, but I don't know how that's going to work out. I can't say that today. But it's weird because you guys require our consent to have my third grader watch a movie in class. You require my consent for my older daughter to take a survey in class. You require my consent for her to be administered Tylenol at school. So you should be requiring my consent to strap something across her face all day long. I've already contacted the folks on the list that you're providing. It's almost a waste of time. I don't have a lot of time. I'm a single parent. But I'm here, and I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I will continue this for as long as it takes. Lastly, other schools are doing it. I don't know why you're not. You're over-compliant. It's ridiculous. And my daughter has something to say.
My mom should choose what we should wear. We shouldn't be wearing masks. We should be showing our face and be breathing so we can actually talk to our friends and hug our friends.
And she has a hard time understanding what the teacher's saying. She can't read the lips. I read lips. I don't have to read lips, but I do. It's important. I have a hard time when voices are muffled for some reason. And so she's not getting the enunciations or the pronunciations. She comes home saying words that are not quite correct sometimes, and I know this is why. We will not comply, and we're not going to stop.
My name is Lyle Flood, and I live at 2133 Rockville Road, and I'm just going to be real quick here. My daughter would also have something to say, but I just would like to remind you as a school board, with all due respect, the governor has been restricted. His emergency powers have been voted by a legislator. They took them from him, and we have an attorney general who has said that, for lack of better words, that we'll not be enforcing the overreaches, egregious ones at times that are going on. So it is true to say our hands here are not tied. You are the face of the government to us. You are a representative, and we expect action.
My name is Shirley Dale. Yeah, you know where I live, 200 Rockville Road. I'm a freshman in high school. For 2/3 of last year, I wore my mask. And every single day, I would come home or I would get on the bus with a headache and a snotty nose, and it was gross. And everybody did this. And the kids on the bus would be, like, they would be wearing masks for like 8 hours a day, which is disgusting, and you shouldn't have to do it. Last year I just did virtual because I was sick of it, and I couldn't even see my friends. You know, like, I wasn't wearing a mask then, I'm not gonna wear a mask when I have to, and if you tell me to wear a mask, I'm not wearing it. So I was super happy when they were optional, and then, of course, when we mandated them again, and when we started the school year, all of my teachers wore masks except for one. That's ridiculous. But all of them are vaccinated, and they're wearing masks. But when I didn't wear masks, I sent them a thank you letter and I said, I like that you don't wear a mask. I can see your face and I can hear you better, and I like when you teach like that. Now I have to sit all day and wear stinky masks that actually, they will actually cause health problems. When I walked in, I was okay for the first week, the grace period. When the grace period ended, they threatened to send us to the office to sit there all day, even though in section 5B, it says a school entity should not restrain, use force, or physically remove teachers, children, students, staff, or visitors who refuse to comply with this order would otherwise not be able to do so. They are not legally allowed to remove us from school because we won't wear these slimy face coverings. We pay what my parents pay taxes so I can go to school. So they can't kick me out. I'll take my office all day. And 6th grade brother and 7th grade sister is not there. The 2nd grade teacher is bubbly and she doesn't shut up. She doesn't understand. Some of the kids don't like her as much. Or she thinks, because she doesn't wear a mask. That's just disgusting. Her teacher, who's probably vaccinated and doesn't know as much as some people who are in studies, always tries to tell them to wear masks. Even though none of the kids want to, nor their parents want to. The varieties that the school board can do is parent exemptions. Other schools have already been given parent exemptions, which a lot of people have been saying you need a parent exemption to, a parent signature to watch a movie. In 7th grade, to watch Goosebumps, you had to get a parent signature. But you have to a parent signature to strap some cloth on a kid's face. We're all healthy kids that don't understand why we need to wear masks. Now, I know this disease is real. People have died from it. It's here. We're all going to get it. But we don't all go out and wear band-aids so that if we fail, we won't scratch ourselves. And the healthy people have more than 99% chance of surviving. Which, yes, people have died from it. I'm not saying that people have died from it. And people get super sick from it. I've seen people that have gotten super sick. But healthy people don't get it, or they will get it, but they won't get super sick from it, and they're not going to die from it. I've had immediate, and I've had another family that has had it. And maybe antibodies, I don't know, we haven't gotten tested, but according to a study by the University of Utah, there's only a 12% chance of you getting COVID-19 from someone you live with. Like I said, I don't know if I have antibodies, but I never had symptoms of COVID-19, and my dad had it. And I'd go in the kitchen and stand with him in the morning. So if I was going to get it, I was going to get it then. So that just shows how low the transmission. No, because I need to stop. But this is like the perfect way to make a healthy population less healthy by slapping cloth on kids' faces. Or, like I said, kids that ride the bus, it's 8 hours a day. Now, you guys are the board, so you can actually do something. Please stand up for us, stand up for the parents, for the kids, and just let us at least have parent exemptions. That's the very least you can do. Thank you for your time.
My name is Amanda Myers. I live at 24 Graybill Road in Leola. The thing that you have to be careful about is all the media is portraying is these thousands of cases every day. But what you don't realize is the patients in the hospital that get tested multiple times in their stay are not, they're all counted as new cases. They don't take into account that it's the same patient. Also, the CDC issued a Class 1 recall of the PCR test that they use to test for COVID because it does not differentiate between COVID and the flu. However, the recall was in February or March, I believe, and they gave facilities until December of this year to change their testing company. Also, with them talking about the Delta variant, in order to determine if a case is the Delta variant, they have to do genetic sequencing. This is an expensive test and can take weeks to get the results. The CDC is only testing a limited number of cases in different areas. And there are some labs that are refusing to test for the variant because, I quote, based on standard of care, the viral genetic data does not have implications for clinical management. Their treatment and isolation does not differentiate based on the variant. Since this all started 18 months ago, 335 kids 17 and under have been listed as dying from COVID, but 49,725 kids died from other causes in that same time frame. So COVID accounted for 0.673% of all deaths, less than 1%. In the 2019 to 2020 flu season, 188 children died from the flu. But remember that in the 335 number, they didn't differentiate, the test can't differentiate between COVID and the flu. When they say that most people currently dying are unvaccinated, they're not taking into account that some have had one or both shots. There's not a partially vaccinated category. So if a patient is not 14 days after their second shot, they're lumped into the unvaccinated category. The label on the box of the surgical masks that I have to wear in the hospital as a nurse used to state on the box that they should not be worn for longer than 20 minutes without being replaced, because as you talk and as you sweat, the moisture breaks down the mask barrier. Cloth masks are even worse. They don't even form a tight seal around the nose and the mouth. So to prevent against an airborne disease doesn't actually work. But the difference is the cloth masks and wearing, well, any mask for an extended period of time keeps the bacteria near the children's nose and mouth, which can cause other health issues. And if you look at a face shield, the standard for the face shield is it's not allowed to have a gap between the forehead, but it has a gap around the whole side of the mouth. So, by requiring a doctor's signature for an exemption, you are making it literally impossible for parents to get one because all doctors are refusing to sign it. Keep in mind that they see my healthy child for maybe 15 minutes once a year. I spend every day with my children. I can tell the doctor how my kids were anxious and depressed, and their grades tanked last year, but they don't care. How can I prove that the mask is causing my children anxiety, and depression if my doctor won't take my word for it. Have you thought about how scary it is for these children, especially these poor kindergartners who are coming into school and don't know anybody, and all they can see is your eyes? Because sometimes a smile makes the biggest difference. Other people have already stated the section 4A, so I'm not going to repeat that. However, I hope that you understand this is not a law, and I respected the school's original stance that they would look at each individual school, and if there was a large increase in cases, people would mask for 2 weeks. I understood that. But the Department of Health doesn't even have an end date for this. So how long are we going to let this go on? I left my job of almost 15 years because I did not agree with the decisions the hospital was making anymore. So I expect you guys can also stand up and take risks. I wasn't able to find it again, but I did screenshot on my phone when I saw it. On the Department of Education has Conestoga Valley listed as able to receive $8.947 million by complying with this in assistance. And I really hope that money is not factoring into this, but that you will put our children first.
Hi, I'm Christopher Rolfe. I'm at 114 West Metzler Road. And I'm basically up here to thank all the that took time to come out and gave great argument, a lot of thought into defending our rights and defending our children's rights. So what makes me very ashamed, there's 20 sets of ears up there that's fallen deaf.
Good evening. My name's Rick Atkins. I live at 50 Grable Road. Last week, I stood up here and talked to y'all again and relayed the message about last spring, my daughter, after wearing the mask, playing with spring, got fed up and she played the system. She knew if she told the nurse that, she had a headache, they would send her home for the 10 days. She just needed a mental break. Well, since last month, my daughter went in for her well-child checkup, 16. The doctor recommended that she goes on medication for depression and anxiety. This was not something that was even discussed or in the realm of our life up until this masking started. So, do I feel that the masks mandate have contributed to this? Absolutely. Will our doctor sign a permission slip for her not to wear the mask? Absolutely not. But yet he will write a script for a drug to dull her mind, which is not what I want as a parent. My daughter is a bright young lady. I don't want her on drugs. But these masks, I feel very compelled that is what's causing these issues for her. She is no longer seeing the happy smiles of her friends. What leads to depression, anxiety, not feeling good? If you can't see a smile, why smile? I smile a lot. I get accused of smiling way too much. I'm out in the public a lot. My kids can't see smiles. If you don't see smiles, you're not going to be happy. Not happy, you're going to get depressed. That's my stance. I do not want my doctor to prescribe a drug when simply seeing an unmasked face can brighten up your day a lot.
This is Chaps and 274 Highview. So I'm going to talk a little bit about CV, but this doesn't affect my kids. So we started CV about 4 years ago. Started with the CVVA. We lasted 6 years. Horrible. And I still haven't been first my half a year of the internet stipend. But that's a story. We found Brownstown. My daughter thrived. We finished out the next 2 years. We had friends that had moved out of other school districts to become CV members to go to Brownstown that are now serving on PTOs as I was. I was serving daily, multiple times a day. I was in multiple times a week helping with these kids, seeing them. Brownstown was a fantastic place to be. Dr. Grable was great to work with. Our kids were thriving. It was great until our second child came along, and kindergarten, we had to do Zoom for a couple months, and with kindergartners, that was just horrible. This doesn't directly affect my kids because during the summertime before school last year, my 10-year-old looked at me and said, "Mom, if I have to get a shot or if I have to mask, I'm not going." So my 3 kids are now homeschooled, and unlike the rest of these kids, I can say that my kids are thriving, and they're not just surviving. They're at home, they're with us, and we know what's best for them. We're taxpayers, we vote for you guys. You can do better for the rest of these, and I'm standing here for my friends and my families and my neighbors. Please just listen to us.
Hi, I am here this evening to speak on behalf of both parents and educators who share my concerns about masks for children.
Can we have your name and address?
Oh, sorry, I forgot that part. I am Carrie Wolf, and I live at 121 Joy Avenue in Leola. As a parent, I fully support a parent's right to choose whether or not to mask their child. Last school year, out of love and respect for our vulnerable populations, we masked our kids. Now that teachers, parents, and grandparents have the option to be vaccinated, we no longer need to cover our children's faces. Adults can now choose to protect themselves in a variety of ways, and now we ask for the right to protect our children in the way we feel is best for them. As a teacher who taught during the pandemic, both virtually and in person, I can give personal testimony as to what masking looks like in the classroom. For me, this is yet another example of a policy that sounds good, looks good on paper, but doesn't work or provide benefit in the actual classroom. I fully understand the effectiveness of masks in, say, a hospital setting where adults are trained to wear masks properly. However, children are not tiny adults, nor are they miniature surgeons. I encourage you to look up the proper procedure for putting a mask on and removing it, and then since you're not able to be in the classroom observing, I want you to just try to guess how many times the mask will need to be removed during the day for eating, drinking, having a snack, taking a sip of water, going outside, having a mask break. Who ensures proper removal? Where do the masks go when they're not on the child's face? If you have a child, it's not hard to imagine that sometimes they end up on the floor. I encourage you to look up the procedure we teach our kids for when they sneeze. It involves a tissue and hand washing. Have you ever wondered what happens when a child sneezes while wearing a mask? Do you think it's sanitary for a child to sneeze in a mask and then wear that same mask filled with mucus for the rest of the day? Our children are inventive, curious, and mostly still learning not to chew on things that are not food. Therefore, many children will spend the day chewing on their mask, and they might even try drinking water through their cup through their mask. I've seen all these things firsthand and much, much more. Masks distract from learning, prevent proper sanitary hygiene practices. They're constantly touched, adjusted, removed, put back on, chewed on, wet, damp, and the list goes on. I ask every board member here to spend just one day or part of a day sitting in an elementary classroom and just observe the effectiveness of masking. Finally, most parents will not be placated with the suggestion of wearing a shield instead of masks, as it has its own set of issues, including headaches, issues for children who wear glasses, and even a more arguable case for reducing COVID transmission. Cloth masks and shields do little to protect against the virus and therefore act simply as something on the face so we can be considered compliant for overreaching government mandates. I implore you not to make the same mistake politicians make all the time in education by enacting policies that sound good on paper but are not practical or effective in the actual classroom. Thank you for your time.
Andrew Black, 2219 New Holland Pike. I have 2 boys at Fritz Elementary, and I just want to come up here and talk a little bit about the hypocrisy on this mask. I find it absolutely crazy that we live in a world where the school cannot place antibiotic cream on a small cut on my child without a parent's consent, but a parent has no option to opt out of a medical device being placed on their face without risk of their child being denied an education. We live in a world where a child can choose their own pronouns, but they can't choose to not wear a mask without risk of being denied an education. This entire discussion is not about the masks. This is about control. In a true pandemic, a state mask mandate is not something that would even be necessary. Nobody loves or cares more about our children than us. If our children were at such a high risk of contracting this virus and possibly dying, and masks actually worked, you wouldn't need to force them on anyone. We wouldn't be sending our kids to school where they're sitting side by side with other children maskless and at risk eating their lunch or playing during gym class 5 days a week. The problem we face is that if we hand over all this control to the powers that be in Harrisburg and the tyrant running the show up there, and we don't have a school board who will stand up for our individual freedoms and our rights, it is looking more and more like we will be right back here in possibly just a few months having this same discussion, but it won't be about masks. Rather, the topic will be vaccines and the state's inevitable push to have our children inoculated, and possibly even without requiring parental consent. If you think us parents are frustrated, mad, and outspoken now on this mask matter, you haven't seen anything yet.
Snag at 2077 Creek Hill Road. Also live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. So you've heard many stories tonight. Probably dismissed them all. Legal points of view, medical theories, personal stories. You've even heard from kids here tonight. I believe part of the mandate states that if we're in a school entity, you guys need to enforce wearing masks, right? You gave us a 2-week grace period.
I asked for parental exemption to extend that. What's the difference of the kids here tonight, the parents here tonight, not wearing a mask, you're not enforcing that, yet tomorrow morning they show up to school without a mask and you're going to send them to the principal's office? Just the hypocrisy in the enforcement of it. This is ridiculous. We're asking you guys to stand up and fight, right? And you're afraid of getting sued personally or something, right? But yeah, you're not enforcing it here tonight. How do you reconcile that? I'll leave you with that.
Christy Reiner, 262 East Main Street. I'm actually up here because of my daughter. I don't do public speaking. She went to Leola Elementary this morning. I told her not to comply. I told her to say no. She said no. She told her teacher to call her mom. They repeatedly asked her 3 or 4 more times till she was in tears. I got the call from the principal, went and picked her up, and she was fine. I wanted to leave her there all day. But why should I allow the school to emotionally abuse my child? Whereas if I was emotionally abusing my child, I would have CYS at my door immediately. We won't comply. She will walk in tomorrow without a mask. I will go back and get her again, and I will continue to file the complaints. Maybe you want to hear it from her.
The government should not be controlling us. We should be controlling ourselves.
I'm very proud of my daughter and my son who's not here with me. First and second graders, they stood up for what they believed after they watched other students who went in without a mask. They just complied. Whether it was because their parents told them not to or told them to is not the point. It's the point that they were forced, they were intimidated, they were bullied into wearing that mask.
My name is Brooke Black, 2219 New Holland Pike. All right, I work, and I worked 12 hours today, and I have 3 kids, 7, 3, and 5, and they're all boys, so I don't have a ton of free time, so I'm going to try to organize my scribble on paper here. I saw a video today, and it takes place in Australia. Kids are being forcibly removed from their parents. It is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching to watch. They're being removed by force. These kids are screaming, kicking, yelling, pleading. They're being torn away from their parents to get vaccinated. This is today, like 2021, happening in Australia. Okay, people? We all see the writing on the wall. Vaccines are coming, and who knows what else. If you saw the kids, the way the kids were being ripped from their parents, it's not hard to understand why parents would be compelled to hide and protect their children. Anne Frank hid from Nazi Germany. They were following orders whenever they killed her. The people that were hiding her were breaking the law. All this to say, just because it's the law or what the government says does not mean that it's right. Laws should not be used as a moral compass, and I pray to God that most of you don't, because look at where we are right now. And this isn't even a law. This is an order, a mandate, whatever you want to call it. It is not law. And let me tell you something, if you think that threats from the state of things that may happen if you decide to go against this mandate, I can tell you it's nothing compared to what will happen if you jeopardize our kids. Not to mention the threats that the state are making have been historically proven to be empty. They're There has been no follow-through on any of this. The district attorney said that they're not filing the charges for those things. And the complaints that have gone through from the Department of Health for other things similar to this, when push comes to shove, they withdraw their complaint. So I'm not sure what you're afraid of. We're asking you to stand up for us and make a voice for us because you have the power and the authority to do that. The Department of Health, the Department of Education, none of that supersedes your power as the school board. And we give you that power. We are begging of you to stand up and communicate the feelings of everybody here that you serve. The last 2 weeks is the first time I've ever actively gotten involved in the school board. And I can speak to a lot of us here that your lack of action and unwillingness to stand up for our desires as a community has gotten our attention. Perhaps we've been complacent for too long, and maybe that's why we find ourselves here today in this position. At the end of the day, this is not about public safety and well-being of others. If it's about power, control, and money. I'm a nurse whose career and livelihood are being threatened. I'm willing to sacrifice my years of service to the community to stand up for what I believe. You better believe if I'm going to jeopardize my livelihood and my ability to make an income to provide for my family, that I'm going to stick up for my kids. I'm going to fight to the end for my kids. And if I'm not working, I've got nothing but time. And I'm not going anywhere. And I think if it hasn't been evidenced in the last 2 weeks by the amount of people that are coming and pouring their hearts out to you and speaking, we're not going anywhere. We're not backing down. And if you're not going to stand up for us, we'll do what we need to get where we need to go. I did have a question.
How's everybody doing tonight? My name's Joe Lapp. I live at 1545 Robert Road. I have two boys, Connor and Benaiah, at 2nd and 4th grade at Fritz, and Michaela, who's in 8th grade at the middle school. I've been a CV resident my entire life. Grew up playing sports for CV. I personally went to Locust Grove and LMH. But like I said, I grew up in Leola and moved over not too far from Leola as I started my own family. I've only had great experiences with Fritz and the middle school up until this most recent update. This morning, I had the privilege of walking my boys in and trying in the most honoring and respectful way to show that we as a family disagree with what's happening by the CV school board. I had the privilege of speaking with this lovely lady here, Jill. We got to hear her out, we got to speak with her, and then I had the privilege of praying with her and over the administration at Fritz, because my heart is still for CV school district. So I just want that to be clear at the get-go. As I was praying for this evening, I felt like the Lord impressed and highlighted something different for me within the order. So I just want to take a couple minutes and share that with you all. this has been really hard for our family. One thing you've heard a lot of parents talk about is mental health. What toll is this mask mandate taking on our kids' mental health? And I have here, this is page 2 of the 5-page order from Allison Beam, and I want to read a sentence out of it. Requiring face coverings in schools, therefore, balances the concerns for the mental health of our children with the need to protect them against the disease. So the Department of Health is stating they are aware that this has a toll on our children's mental health. But this is a pandemic that we have to control for our kids. Since the beginning of COVID, 357 kids between the ages of 5 and 18 have passed away. Every day in the United States, between the grades of 9th grade and 12th grade, there are 3,700 suicide attempts a day. How is that not the pandemic that we're focusing on? How can the Department of Health and Education say wearing masks for millions of healthy kids outweighs the damage that it could do to their mental health? I implore you as a school board to look at the oath that you took, and I believe that states that you swear to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and discharge the duties of your office with fidelity. I'll be honest, I had to really look up what the definition of fidelity spells out. And it says, quality of being faithful or loyal to a country, organization, or etc. Devotion to something which one is bound by pledge or duty. So my question to you as elected officials for the school district of Conestoga Valley, are you being faithful to the office at Conestoga Valley or to the state? And I'll leave you with that question.
Amanda again. One thing I forgot to say was, please don't say that, 90% or whatever you're estimating of the kids are wearing masks so they don't have an issue with it. I respect all the people here and the kids who feel like they can stand up. My children do not like to be the center of attention. So they come home, sometimes very upset. I got asked last week if I would homeschool them by one of my children. They don't like it, but that doesn't mean just because they're wearing it that it's okay. Especially my elementary school children. You're all towering over them. So if you put pressure on them to wear it, of course they will.
My name is Matthew Geib again. I live at 190 Eagle Drive. My son goes to Brownstown. Today we had an issue. I was just going to leave it. I didn't have anything planned to say again, like last week, and here I am. So I was going to sign the 504, not because my son has a disability in any kind of way or whatever other kind of condition that would cover. I don't feel right to sign it. I had a lengthy discussion with Dr. Grable, awesome guy. I really enjoy our conversations. He's very kind, attentive, the whole shebang. Now, I was told that when I was coming in to sign the 504, my son didn't have to wear the mask, or, a shield. He was told that he could remove it and go back to class, and then everything would be fine. So I got to the school, talked to Dr. Grable a while. Everything seemed fine. I get my son, he had the shield that I guess the school had provided, and I asked him why he had the shield, and he broke down and started crying and said, they made me wear this shield. So my kid is very passive. He doesn't like confrontation. Me, on the other hand, I've spent 8 years in the infantry, so it's nothing new to me. Younger me, I would not be so reserved. I'm trying to keep it together. This is my son. I know there are plenty of parents here. I feel like a blunt sledgehammer compared to these parents. They seem like they're like wordsmiths, and I am not. I'm very blunt. My point is, if he comes to, I know Dr. Z, you had stated that what's going to happen, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. My son's going to come to school tomorrow. He's not going to wear a mask. He's not going to wear a shield. He's not going to be denied his classroom. It's already on the deal. The Department of Health. You guys can't remove him, can't force him. So when he told me that he was made to wear the shield, I instantly got pissed because this kid broke down hysterically, asked me to homeschool him. Like, he didn't like homeschool last year for the last 6 months. So that speaks volumes for that. I live a very peaceful life. And don't mistake peacefulness for spinelessness. I will take a stand for my kid. Out of everybody on this board, the only person, well, I haven't messaged anybody from the school board, I should say. I have messaged a couple different people. The only one to ever get back to me is Dr. Graybill, and I very much appreciate that. Nobody from higher, and I've sent direct messages at CC Dr. Graybill, nothing from hires. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm a little way.
Teresa Millisak, 47 Walnut Drive, Ephrata. When this all started, this year, my daughter was very excited to go to school without the mask. And now that the mask is back in effect, she is very kind of reserved, depressed. She doesn't want to go. I want to read something because I sent her to school with an email that specifically said, when it was the grace period week, that do not talk to my child about this. She's very anxious about it. You make your comments to myself or my husband. So as soon as she walked in the door, she was offered a mask. And right there, the pressure was as soon as she walked in. It wasn't, something that she could go throughout the day with. And the parent or the teachers and things like her, I have an email here that says how she's a bright spot in the school community and how she's awesome. And that's from her principal. Because she is a social butterfly, and this is really detrimental to her to wear the mask. I would also like to say, over the summer, these kids were all lumped in together at pools, amusement parks, swimming pools. We personally, with some other CV students who are in the same studio, went to numerous competitions with thousands of people in the same room. We went out to Ohio to nationals where there was more than the CV population in 2 rooms for a period of 4 days, and nobody left there with COVID. Not a single person, and masks were not required. So saying that, we have to wear these masks to be protected, that's not true. And the other thing I would like to ask is, at a minimum, if you could at least extend the grace period until the court case is heard. With other cases, like if someone's on a feeding tube and they want to remove the feeding tube and somebody files an injunction, the feeding tube doesn't get removed. It stays there until the courts actually decide. And that's how I feel, at a minimum, that's what you should do as the board. I would also like to know if you could make a mandate that, still comply, that, you do require masks, but no punishment for the students who don't want to. I mean, that's not my way to go, but if it has to be, that would be something I would be willing to negotiate with, because I still have the choice and my child still has the choice not to wear the mask. So then they shouldn't be sent home. And the other thing is, teachers or other students should be taught not to bully the ones who don't want to wear a mask. That is a form of, bullying. And another thing, one of the things that you guys teach on your anti-bullying message is tolerance. So they need to learn tolerance for the people who want to not wear a mask. I'm not anti-vax and I'm not anti-mask. If you want to wear it, go ahead. It's your freedom. I am for freedom, and that is what this is all about. I remember what my question was earlier, and actually it was both my husband and I are wondering about this. So the letter that we got from you today, whenever you called us to pick up our kids, at the end of it, it says about disciplinary process. And I'm not sure how this falls under a disciplinary process for my kids. As far as, the battle that's going on behind the scenes, that's fine, but I'm not sure how my kids developing some kind of disciplinary record should, unless I'm misinterpreting that, which it doesn't say in the letter what you mean by those words. And my second, so one is, what is this disciplinary process that you're referring to? And my second question is, okay, so you've told us what you're going to do today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And I feel probably many of us have communicated with our principals of what we are going to do today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And again, your plan for Wednesday is to send my kids to the principal's office and have us to come and pick them up and automatically unenroll them from CV and automatically enroll them in CVVA. Is that my understanding? Yes? And is that legal? I mean, I the parent, don't have a say in where my child receives their education. What gives you the authority to unenroll them from public school that I pay tax dollars for and put them in a CV virtual academy without even talking to me? And on top of that, I'm trying to talk to my kids this week, 7 and 5. Okay, 7 and 5 are the ones that this is affecting and impacting. I have to tell them, I don't know what's happening after Wednesday. I don't know where you're going to school. They're afraid to come to school today. And I told them yesterday, the last week and a half, we've been in communication with the school. They've been very nice. Tomorrow when you go to school, it's going to be different. I want you to know, I didn't want them blindsided. I told them, you're going to get to school, they're going to ask you to put a mask on. You say, no, thank you. And if they tell you that, they're going to have you go to the office and they're going to have mommy or daddy come pick you up. My 7-year-old is like practically in tears because he doesn't want to have to go to the principal's office. Because it's been ingrained in these kids that you go to the principal's office because you've done something wrong. My children have not done anything wrong here. So, in addition to not just the mask, but the emotional duress that you're putting on these children, and then it comes back at me, the principal says to me, I implore you, please don't put your kids in the middle of this. Don't have your kids fight this battle for you. I'm not putting my kids in the middle of this. You guys are putting my kids in the middle of this. I want my kids to go to school in person with their friends, with their family, for the education that I pay for with my tax dollars, and not be segregated, not be discriminated against. And I'll go back to what I said before. This is happening in this school. The fact that they got sent home today and it was an administrative day and they didn't have to do school today, they were denied education today, point blank. Okay? There was no, you can paint it all you want that they got a free day of school. And yeah, they went fishing and they had a great time and they learned other things that they're not going to learn in school. But that's not okay. They did not receive what they deserve today. And they're not going to get what they deserve tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. And we're 2 days out. People work. I have no idea what CVVA is. I know you're giving us information on that tomorrow, but you want to give us less than 24 hours to digest what it means that you're going to, okay, here's some information, less than 24 hours, we're going to unenroll your child from this school, and they're going to do CVVA. I don't know what that looks like. Do they go to the school and they're segregated? Because that's not okay either. Do they stay home and do online learning? Because what are people that work supposed to do with that? So you're not really giving us a fair option. This is not a good alternative to what you're enforcing on people.
Hi, my name is Ivan Strom. I live at 2151 New Holland Pike. So I'm a part of the 1% that has been wearing a mask to school. And during the grace period, I found myself sitting in a class by myself, the only person not wearing a mask. And I knew for a fact that a lot of my friends and several of my classes were wearing masks just because they didn't want to be, sought out by other kids. And so, today I went to school and my parents supported me in my decision that I didn't want to wear a mask. And so I went to school, showed up, walked through the front of the school, and was caught in the front of the school by the principal. Very nice. Just asked me to go and sit in the auditorium and wait. So I did. And I was called into the office. And when I was called in the office, he told me that, because I wasn't wearing a mask and I refused to wear one, even though they offered me one, that I was going to have to, leave school early and they were going to give me an administrative absence. And he called my dad and I drive to school, so I went home. And it was probably the first day in school where I actually wasn't happy that I got the day off. Tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into school, not going to wear a mask. They're going to send me home. Same thing Wednesday. And the only question I have is they're going to try and enroll me in online school, which I don't want to do. I don't want to, sit at home and I did online classes last year for part of the year because I had an internship to free up time. And it was so easy that I almost didn't even want to do it because it was like nothing. And so, my question is, when Wednesday comes, what's going to happen when I don't want to enroll in online school? I don't think you guys have the ability to force me to do it. And honestly, from what I've heard, just back and forth conversation and the whole process of what's been going on, following along with it, it seems like there's no real, you guys don't even know what you're going to be doing full time. And it's kind of like a day by day thing. And it's not really enough period of time for me even to make a decision, what's going to happen to me. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say.
Good evening. My name is Myron Stolzfus, 831 Stumpfield Drive. Quickly get up here. And first of all, before I start saying a few things, I want to implore Aaron Fisher at the end. When everybody's done, Aaron, can you come back up here again and read, where are you at? And address the questions that you addressed or that down at that. And as a business owner, it's my responsibility to pay attention to details and the details behind the details. You know, it's not really what's being said, it's what's, you know, it's emotional intelligence, right? You know, Dr. D, you mentioned at the last meeting, I believe, and in this one as well, that the state is really the ones that you guys are fearful of. Is that correct? I mean, that's what I'm hearing from the teachers, superintendents, the school board. You know, you guys aren't the only ones that have access to attorneys. You know, I've taken counsel multiple attorneys, and they're saying in consistency that you guys are positively not under threat from the state. For some reason, that's being passed down, and to me, it's either a straight up lie, or it's a fear tactic, or it's some form of one of those things. So for myself to come out and hear that over and over, we're in a spot. We're in a spot, okay? Everybody is in a spot in this situation, and I understand that. But that particular statement going around is false. It's a flat out lie. And I think we're at a point now where you guys know that. Because I've talked, and I'm not going to point out names because it incriminates you guys, right? I mean, with each other, right? You guys are not under threat from the state. Stop with that line. It's not the truth. And you guys know it's not the truth. I know you do because and we know that the school boards, so many of the attorneys locally have taken counsel from attorneys, so they're, you know, there's a conflict of interest. But tonight, what I was saying about emotional intelligence, I'm hearing one infraction after another from the parents here. Those infractions, we are duly noting every single one of them. Well, the people I'm in contact with are. All the necessary steps are slowly being put into place. We have to compile infractions before we go to the next. It's not a threat. I'm just saying the parents here, it's enough. I mean, we can't be pushed any further. We simply can't be pushed any further. And I'm the last person who's litigious, but something has to be done. And for myself, the other thing that I've been hearing from the board, and these emails are getting passed around, okay? I have not shared any, but they're getting passed around, and some of them necessarily. We know which one of you got, we know where every one of you stand. And for those of you who do not agree with this, including teachers at the school, again, I won't say names, it's time to take a stand. Like, we know where you individually stand. And my question again, and I think, Aaron, you should address this when you come up, is it not permissible for any board member who does not agree to step down and resign if you're fearful? Is that something that is not allowed? I think it is. If you feel like you're at risk, again, the lie, I believe, is being perpetrated. If you feel you're at risk, step down. You know, understand, we all can handle different elements of fear, and, but it may be a time to step down. So I implore you guys, infractions are being documented. We have access to attorneys as well. And something, it has to stop. It has to stop. So if you, anyone else wants to speak, sure, but I do want you to come back up again. Is that cool with you, Aaron? Thank you.
Aaron Fisher, 145 Spring Meadow Lane, Ephrata, PA. I did see some of you write my questions down, so I'll repeat them for the group. Do you believe the frequently asked questions section created by the Secretary of Health to be law? That's why I wanted the solicitor to be here tonight, because I'm sure you're default for that. If you would have said yes, I'll just give the answer. When has a fact section ever been a legal document? All right. So if the school board followed the order as it is written, the plain meaning doctrine of the order, instead of looking to the facts section, we should be in good standing with the order by allowing an exemption without a doctor's signature. Right? So first question. Second question, looking at risk management, right? Every business owner does that like myself. Does following the order as you are at the school, as you're doing it tonight, and I know we're in disagreement on how you're doing that, does the school board or future CV school boards I'm trying to read the question here. To student health, from the risk management, is mental health issues, physical health issues, even student suicide risk. Is that risk greater than what we're talking about tonight? And does the school board's sovereign immunity protect them from that? In your professional opinion, which would be worse in that risk? The third thing is, we heard from this gentleman here in the front who served our military and goes to Brownstown. Looking at the 504, I think you've answered our question. It seems you're trying to say without really saying, you know, we want to work with you parents, maybe even agree with you parents, so use the 504 option. We look at the definition of the 504. We see how it's a handicap, a disability type thing. We're being forced in that in every email. Principals are handing them out like it's candy. You know, is that what you're saying without saying it? Could you become more clear in that definition there? We're just playing a game of semantics like Harrisburg is playing with us. Those were my three questions I want to know so I can get more clarity, trying to think how you guys are thinking, how a lawyer's thinking. What counsel are you guys getting? What's it sound like? I want to be privy to that information.
Any further comments before we move on in our agenda? All right. With that, do we have any comments from CVEA tonight? All right. Any comments from any other employee groups? All right. Board, you have in front of you our consent agenda. These are things that we've talked about in the past or previous meetings or are routine in nature. With that, board, if you don't have any questions, I'll take a motion. Oh, sorry. Yep, Dr. Z.
Board, before you vote on the consent agenda, specifically the superintendent's report, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Maribel Fernandez. Maribel is our recommended candidate for the Human Resources Director position. After 2 rounds of interviews that included building personnel, district office individuals, and board members, Maribel distinguished herself ahead of the other candidates. Maribel, I'm going to wait till people leave, so hang on 1 second. Maribel comes to us with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in educational management, so hang on to that criminal justice degree for a second. I'll get back to that one. In addition to her academic achievements, she brings a wealth of practical experience at a variety of locations. At Penn Medicine in Philadelphia, Maribel started as a workers' comp benefits specialist and worked her way up to the HR disability management supervisor. She then honed her skills as the director of human resources community education centers at the George W. Hill Correctional Facility in Thornton, PA. That's where the 2 degrees definitely come into play. From there, Maribel was the Director of Human Resources and Communication for the Borough of Westchester, where she gained experience working with the Board of Directors. And her most recent employment was the Director of Human Resources with the Salem Medical Center in Salem, New Jersey. I believe that the emergency room director at Salem summed it up beautifully when she said about Maribel, "I just wish that there were more people like her." Board, I'd like to introduce Maribel Fernandez for your approval on tonight's superintendent report. Maribel?
Good evening, Dr. C, and good evening to all board members. It is with great honor and appreciation that I thank you for this job opportunity with TV School District. I am delighted and excited to be part of this highly competent team that have been asked that I join them. So it is with great pleasure to accept that position. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, with that announcement, board, and with that information, we'll take a motion to approve our consent agenda tonight.
So moved.
Roll call, starting with Dana.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Congratulations, Maribel. You are official. Talking about plan. All right, Don and Wes, you guys are up. Talk a little bit about PlanCon.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, I'd like to present to you the Part A and B, PD Part A and B for the Loyola and existing middle school renovations. First, a little history. As some of you may remember, we put in PDE Part A's for all the projects before the moratorium went in. That held our place in line, for lack of a better term. That was recently lifted. We found that out about a month ago, so we are now proceeding with those projects. Part A is basically a justification for the project. We need to describe the existing conditions of the school and why the district would like to do this project. And then Part B roughly follows our schematic design phase and is a scheduled area plan that lists all the educational areas of the school. I'm happy to drill down on any pieces or portions that you may, or questions you may have, and I can address those.
Any questions, board? You need approval for this. All right. All right, board, I need a motion to approve.
PlanCon A and B?
Yes.
I make a motion to A and B.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Fletcher.
The next item on the agenda is a agreement. It's actually the proposal format that we received from Reynolds to do the mold remediation work in the one classroom wing at Loyola earlier in the school year. Fortunately for us, the amount did not push us into a situation where we needed to go to insurance because it was less than the deductible. Sort of the converse side to that, though, is normally if we would go to insurance, we would not actually pay it. We would just pay the deductible, and obviously the insurance would pick up the rest. In this particular case, we're going to pay Reynolds directly because it's within the deductible. So the process that we needed to go through that, the Department of Education has a process for emergencies so that we don't have to sit and wait for a board meeting when something's immediate like that. So in consultation with Mr. Frank Hauser, we did still go out and get 3 quotes and make sure that we got a price. This was the lowest of the 3. And so we brought them on board to get the work done so we can get the kids back into those classrooms. Otherwise, we would have had to wait for a board meeting to do that and didn't want to do that. I want the kids in the classrooms and not. They were actually utilizing, fortunately at Loyola, we have the back end of the auditorium that can be sectioned off and used as a large group instruction area. So it was good that we had that, but still obviously better for the kids to be in the classroom. So they are finishing the work up today, tomorrow, and so it all sort of worked out that way. So we are asking you to approve this tonight. just so we have all the paperwork in order. If we remember from prior instances, there is a letter that Dr. Z will send to PDE kind of formalizing that waiver. So we'll describe to them the process that we followed, but we do still need board action on this piece because it's an expenditure of funds.
I'll make a motion, but just one quick, did you find the root cause? Was it the single system that caused the mold? There might have been a note going around of what was the root cause.
Yeah, there is not a single system, Leo.
Okay.
You're talking about the piping system.
Yeah, the piping system, but
Yeah. No. So that building is different than the other buildings where we had issues in the past where it was inherent to the system. Although, one of the things that we talked about as we looked at Leola as part of a renovation, we'll be looking at that system and upgrading it. But it was just in one specific classroom. So if we would have had a more present issue, we certainly would have seen it in other areas of the building as well.
All right, thank you. So I'll make a motion to approve the proposal.
Second.
All right, roll call, starting with Keisha.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
And aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, and board, you have in front of you the finance and operations report, curriculum instructions. Well, there's no report in curriculum instruction. Any questions about anything that we see there? Dr. Z, any federal funds tonight?
None.
Idette, any comments from your reports?
Aye.
No.
Is this one on?
Yep.
There were some changes added to PSBA's program just Friday and today for your information. You should have gotten September-October bulletin covering cybersecurity and online learning. The conference will be the 25th, 6th, and 7th. You can still register. It's online. Each of those days there will be a keynote speaker, and the charge to attend the conference is $0. So, you can sign up yourself and then be able to move around the website. I did some of that last year, and they made it very easy to sign on and find what programs you wanted, presentations you were interested in. On October 6th, they're having a webinar on innovative online learning in school districts. On October 13th, keeping board meetings effective. There is a new advocacy campaign, and it's around charter schools. It was unveiled today. It's called a Next Step One for those that are interested in new advocacy on charter schools. PDE has released to the Joint Committee on Documents some new regulations for review for 30 days. If you go online and want to see what new regulations they're looking at, I would suggest that you be aware that you're probably going to want to scroll down all the way to page 22 out of 75. The rest doesn't really have those. And finally, at the risk of again being accused of being way into process, I've been looking up the changes in the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act that took effect August 31st. And some of this would have applied to tonight's meeting earlier, but that was not an appropriate time for me to bring that up. But it talks about the requirement not to vote on anything that isn't already on the agenda. There are all sorts of exceptions and changes. If anybody wants a copy of that, let me know, and I'll get it to you. I have a couple with me, but I can very easily make sure you all get a copy of that. I understand the reason for them doing that we don't vote on things that nobody knew we were even considering, but again, it does cause some problems with things that come up at the last minute that aren't what they call de minimis. And I don't know how you measure that, but that's the way it reads. And that's it. My IU report is pretty much self-explanatory.
All right. Thank you, Idette. Is it Lisa? Anything from the CTC? Not tonight? Okay. Fred, do you have any comments for us?
Project.
The overall project, middle school, is about 46% complete. The work that's going on now, starting with the site. The site's pretty much detail work around all the roads, access, entries, and the turf field. As to the building, Area A is a 3-story. That's the concentration right now. Looking to get that dry. So the stage that it's in now is all the concrete plank has been installed. It's been grouted. Working to get the roof framing in. Roofing's on site. If we stop at this picture here, one of the things in Area A that's happening now is the exterior spray-on installation. So that's a big part of the component for the envelope as it progresses. And again, the roofing, that's actually a big part in getting that section of the building dry. The roofing is on site, expecting by the end of the month to start that roofing process on the 3-story. The rest of the structural steel, with the exception of the gymnasium, has been installed. Slabs have been poured. Plumbing, electric, mechanical rough-ins are going on, and the only notable additional work is that metal stud partitions have started in the 3-story lower level. And that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What is the exact date, time when this is supposed to be complete? Are we on schedule, or are we, what, just a general?
Yeah, we're not on schedule, and Frank, and actually it's approximately 150 days off of the original completion date. We're working through that now with the general contractor, who we have specific scheduling meetings with them now to work through that, and also demanding and working with them on a recovery schedule. They will pull it through. We met with all the other primes. They're all on board to do what they can to fundamentally compress what, I'm not sure what's going on here, but compress the work that has to be completed. Right now, it's pushed out to about May.
That's where we're at right now, is May. As of right now, it'd be May.
The end of May, that's correct.
Right. My question is then, just one last question, and I'll stop bothering. What about all the internal other issues that, like furniture for the building and stuff like that, with everything else in the world that is so far behind? Have we looked into anything like that, or are we getting like quotes and all that? I'm just...
We already started the conversation, and knowing that there's a delay, we factored out the conversation in the order.
Okay.
It gives us plenty of time to start.
Okay.
And
Before the school building opens up. Okay.
Yep, and a little bit fun.
Okay, thank you.
That's good. All right, any other questions for Fred? Thanks, Fred.
Thanks.
All right, this is the second time in our meeting for public comments. Any comments from the public? Second time here?
Hi again, Mark Gensel, 36 West Main Street, Leola. So I thank you for mentioning the Sunshine Act, because the cool thing about smartphones is I can look things up real quick. So I just want to bring something to your attention real quick, and I just want to read what this says. It says, can the public ask questions during the comment period? And it says, yes. Although members of the agency are not required to provide an answer, it is good practice to do so whenever possible. Answering questions can demonstrate a commitment to helping constituents, and in many cases, answering questions informally at a public meeting can reduce future requests under the right to know law, which saves time and money for both the agency and the commenter requester. So I bring that up because I think it's just in good practice to what I had requested, which is just to keep the communication flow between you guys and us. And I also forgot to say this earlier, which is, at least for myself, I owe the school board an apology, which is I have not been involved until this period of time. And that's like a shame on me thing, right? you've been teaching my kids for years, and I've never been bothered to come to a meeting until the rubber met the road, and I think that's a big mistake. But I'm here now and I'm interested, so I will be Googling things that you guys say on site and just seeing if that aligns with some of the things that we have, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, the way I understand. So in the effort of keeping communication clear between you guys and us, kind of like what you shared earlier today, Dr. Z, I would just request that you continue that going. And if it reaches a point where when things are maybe not so charged, but if it gets to a point where we could do a little bit of a Q&A with you guys, even if it needs to be kind of established a little bit more formally as part of a meeting, I do think that would go a long way to just building our confidence, because that's what's shaky on ground right now. The other thing that I forgot to do, which I had actually promised that I would do, and I'm also kicking myself because, again, you guys derailed my whole speech, and it was the last part of the speech I didn't get to, but I just wanted to pray. So I'd like to take a piece of my 3 to 5 minutes, even though I already used that the first time and now I'm up again. I don't know how that works, but if I'm violating laws, I apologize. But I'm just going to pray real quick. So I just want to say, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the families that came out and that spoke today. And we just ask again, and we know that you're sitting on your throne in authority and you have power over all of this stuff. And we just pray for all the school board members and for the superintendent, that you would fill them with boldness, and that they would know what they're doing is right. And just in case, we pray against any fear from government or anything else, Lord, but we also want to thank you for each of these members that are seated here and for the families they represent. We thank you for their commitment that they've put forward to try to do the best for our community, and for all the families that stepped out here in boldness to speak their minds. Thank you that things were respectful and honorable, and I pray that your love and your peace just resounds through this community as we try to find a way to make this work. So thank you, Lord, and thank you, Board, for listening.
Hi, I'm Joel Lapp, 1545 Robert Road. So one important thing I forgot to communicate during my time of sharing, and I think it was just the emotion of it all, like Mark said, this is my first board meeting. My kids have been a part of CV School District, and like I said, they've had a great experience. So a lot of that is to you as board members. But I did just want to, it was interesting as I was sitting back here observing. My dad has worked at Lancaster General Hospital for over 40 years. I remember having the privilege of going in and shadowing him, and we'd have to scrub in, and we'd have to put lead on, and lead skirt and lead vest, and 80-pound me wearing 60 pounds of lead for a 4-hour surgery. That was a lot. Cap, gown, mask, all that kind of stuff. I remember them stressing to us, for a mask to be effective, you can't touch it. I've seen all of you, I think except for 2 in the time that I've been here, touch your mask, therefore making it no longer effective. Touching your mask with your hands, grabbing your water bottle with your hands, drinking out of your water bottle. How much more for the kids is that happening? 100%, exactly. So even if this order was lawful, which we don't believe it is, we actually believe it's doing more harm than it is good, requiring them to wear masks, putting their hands on that, putting their hands back up to their face. And so we would just implore you, as parents, give us a choice. Don't make us go to a doctor's. And so at the end of the day, you have the ability to say, 1, is it lawful? But 2, is it actually effective? And I don't believe it is. So thank you.
All right, any board matters tonight?
Yes. I think, and I voiced this, I think, many times, Dr. Z, and you know the board when we're kind of, I'm asking questions and whatnot, that I feel like the transparency piece is of the utmost importance, because people don't know what they don't know. And I sent an email saying that if I was in the public shoes right now, I'd be upset as well, because I don't know what's going on. So I guess I'm not sure like how exactly to go about it, but I just want to maybe, I don't know if we need to brainstorm or think about it in the next few days, but figure out some way to be more transparent on a regular basis, not just when we have board meetings and the superintendent's comments are read. I really feel strongly that people need to be in the loop, especially in times of like, it's intense. We're mad, and I get it. So they need to be informed, at least to understand where we're coming from, because they're telling us where they're coming from, and I appreciate that, and I get that. But I also think that we need to be more transparent in where we're coming from, too. I think that would minimize, and it's not going to eliminate it, because a lot of the things that, or some of the things that we would say, y'all probably aren't going to like. It's not what you want to hear. But I think just being matter-of-fact and transparent is going to go a long, long way with everyone, either side of this that you're on. So, so if we can figure out, so if we can figure out a way to make that happen and come up with a plan, that would be great, and sooner than later.
Well, what do you mean? Are you talking about answering some questions? Or
I don't, and I mean, I guess I would need to know more about the Q&A part of it and what that would look like if we could do that with, like, I don't know those rules. I'll be upfront and honest with you. So I guess that would be a question, like, how would this work? How could this look? What are our options as far as getting information out in an appropriate way? Does that help, Mike?
Certainly things we can talk more about.
Yeah. Could I just add something on top of that? I'm sorry,
Meyer.
public comments are over.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. What I would say, we used to have a communication plan on the board. And I don't know if maybe what Diane's suggesting is something we need to revisit. I think what happens at this point is, I don't know how we let the public understand the difference between a public meeting and a meeting in the public, the difference between allowing them to comment on what's on the agenda, which is what tonight has, as opposed to what they want, which is a town hall. So it's some way, I think we have to find some way to let the public understand what their rights are under sunshine and what the limits are for us under sunshine. And it works, that sort of works both ways. And it never comes up until we have a large issue.
Right.
And until then, the way we have it works, someone comes, they have a concern. We don't engage in a debate or a discussion during a board meeting, but we make sure that the right people get in touch with them. But when you have 60 people, it's more difficult. I'm not sure what the solution is, but maybe we need to have a sort of emergency plan. And I know PSBA, and I don't necessarily always advocate for them, but they do have a special program for emergencies. Maybe we need to look into that to see what suggestions they have that we're more prepared to change the kind of communication we do, which maybe we don't always have. Because as one gentleman said, he's never been to a board meeting before, and I certainly would never criticize anyone for that. You can't go to board meetings and township meetings and zoning meetings and water authority meetings. You just can't stay connected with everything. But I think maybe PSBA would be the place to start. Find out if they have any sort of preset plans to help guide us.
Is that something that can be discussed like at community forum? Are those where we're already inviting the community to speak and to talk? Is that something where a Q&A, I'm just being hypothetical, can be discussed? And then we have a regular board meeting after that. I'm just trying to think, since we're already having a Q&A with the community forum, can we do that? Is that?
We've done it before.
I would be open to a community forum just to be able to respond, especially when you get false accusations. Everyone's a lawyer. Everyone thinks they know the law, but they don't. Obviously, smart lawyers have gone to court, and this has not progressed. Tells me that it's legal from that perspective. It's not about money. If it was up to me, I know Phyllis is going to correct me, I would tell the state to keep their 20% and we'll just raise taxes 20% and do our own thing,
Agreed.
if it was up to me. You know, I think that we have a protocol, so some of the individuals that say we don't respond as board members, we do have a protocol that we email every board member. We don't want to have every board member respond to you with a different message. So it's our protocol to have it come from one message. That way it's clean, and we don't go that Dana said this, or Mike said this, and it just makes a lot more confusion from that aspect of it. You know, and it's hard to be in between a rock and a hard place. It really is. And it's hard to be a school board member that somebody says, I'm going to run and I'm going to vote you out, and I'm getting at the point where, okay, I've had my fun, this has been great, but as a volunteer, maybe I can take my Monday nights back. And that's just how I'm feeling, but I'm willing to stick it out because I think it's important and I think it's about the kids. And it's not easy on both sides. And I can understand that this was a governor order, and I would love to be able to have access to the governor and yell at him. But I think that part of it is that you have access to us, so you want to take some of your frustrations out, at least on a public servant, and maybe make you feel a little bit better because you're able to vent for something that, I hate to say it, and other school districts are doing this. Other school districts are telling the state, no, we're going to do our own thing, et cetera. But I don't think that they understand the personal liability that comes with it.
Agreed.
Or maybe they just don't care.
I think, circling back, I think community forum.
To follow up, just for clarity, when you say that, like, transparency and communication, are you talking specifically about, like, our thought process behind what's going on? Because I feel like, because I don't want to be dismissive of the work that the district has done in being very clear in the messages of where the district stands. I think that it might not be well received by everyone, but I think that that message is very clear and is sent out in many different ways.
I just don't think it was timely enough at this point. That's all. That's all. I think if because I'll be honest, I did respond to some emails, and I had a disclaimer in there that this was my response. It in no way, shape, or form represented anyone on this board or anyone in administration. And I answered some of the questions that I asked Dr. Z. And I responded with the legit answer that I got.
Right.
I responded in that way. So I just think it just isn't timely enough.
I agree 100%. And I will be honest too, I answered emails too, because you get emails, it's sometimes from the same people over and over. They're not getting answers, and I'm not blaming that on anybody. And it just becomes a point where, as an active member of the community, and we work for them, they are correct. The least I can do is answer them back with the most logistic answers that I have, and that's why I was doing it as well. And it's the same questions that Dave has already answered as well. I think the more information, granted, it's not going to be received right on both ends, but the more that we give, the better it is. And if that takes a community forum and we have to sit here for hours to answer questions, and so be it. That's what we're supposed to do.
I think the hard part is that not everyone's going to be happy.
Oh, they're not.
Well, I don't think
you're not going to come up with a strategy that's going to please everyone. You're going to have that one voice that's just going to run with it because they're not happy. But I understand. I get that.
Well, you know, when we started early on with this, I remember we used to get copies of emails that Todd had sent out.
Yes.
You know, at least we knew they had gotten back to them. It got to the point where there were way too many to do that. The ones I responded to were the ones that were sent just to me, or phone calls that I got. Otherwise, as you say, someone's going to get 5 or 6 probably similar emails, but everybody has their own way of phrasing it, and so the person receiving it may end up sounding. The only ones I answer to are those that have gotten in touch with me in particular, and the rest I leave up to leadership to answer on behalf of the board. That just seems to be the only way to make sure that we're consistent. A lot happens when a big issue like this comes up, and it is difficult to stay ahead of it. and it's difficult to get a consistent message out because some people read one letter from Dr. Z and some others read something in the newspaper, and everybody is actually someplace else. And then they come here with expectations to get that straightened out, only to find out that really it's just a business meeting that basically they're allowed to watch and make comment about the meeting, but it isn't the forum that they would hope for.
Right.
They don't understand how the school board works. They don't understand that education is actually under the control of the legislature, and we only get as much power as the legislature gives us. Everybody likes to think the board has control of this district. I often wish, I'm sure Dr. Z often wishes that were true. But we only are allowed to do what the legislature tells us we can do, and they're very big on telling us what we can and can't do, and how we can and can't do it, and how we can and can't pay for it. We once had a program where board members used to show up at certain locations on like PTO nights or something to try to get a chance to meet parents. Nobody ever wanted to talk to us. So we changed that. We actually went to PTO meetings and asked to have time to introduce ourselves, and like 2 of us would go to each PTO meeting to try to introduce ourselves and explain how the board works. After you've done that once, they've heard your message, you can't go back the next year. There are some conundrums that just can't be solved, but they can be improved. And I think that needs to be our goal, just to do it a little better, be more prepared for these big issues that come at us from who knows where, from left field.
We've done that. I've done a school conference where I just want to listen to Holiday Hoedown, and I get the parent that just wants to nail me against the wall, and because of X, Y, and Z. So I think we've always been open and engaging, and just approachable.
But we can always do better.
We can always do better.
We can always do better. All right.
What we don't want to look like is that we're not trying or we don't care. That is just so not true.
Right. So we can do better. So that's some things we can talk about.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for entertaining that.
Thank you for the flexibility and the leeway.
IDET, on here, on our agenda is the election of the PSB officers. Would you comment?
Some of the people that were listed I know, some I know better than others, but I personally intend to vote for David Schapp from Brentwood, Alice Mathis, and Justin Warren. Because I know Sabrina and David, that made that an easy choice. The other two, you will notice that under President-elect, there was not one highly qualified person listed. They should have had an asterisk before their name, which meant they were interviewed and highly qualified. So,
It should have said I'd Roth on there, is what it should have said.
no, I spent 7 years on that board. My fingerprints are off of that organization now. So those are the 3 people I would recommend we vote. I'm making no recommendation for the insurance board because there's no choice and various other reasons. That's up where they have, report of positions. Do you want that in a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would move that, as a board, we cast our vote, because we only get 1 vote per board, for David Schapp for president-elect, Allison Mathis for vice president, Justin Warren for Section 7 advisor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
That means if anyone wants the board to cast a vote for the insurance trust, you're going to have to make the motion.
All right, board, you see in front of you the dates for our upcoming meetings. We have a retreat and then our board meetings in October. With that, board, I will take a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal and personnel reasons.
So moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?